If you're not having the best day, hopefully this replay changes things for you, because we have absolutely cursed forbidden tech today. The Green Knight, via the Changeling, will be leading the forces of Tzeentch against the Dwarves here. Yeah, let's get to it. So the Green Knight is an option, of course, given that he cannot be taken without a mount. He's one of the only options that actually can, when you transform into him, have some mobility and have a mount option. It's like him, Grom the Paunch. There's a couple of others that cannot be unmounted. Therefore, when you do take the Changeling into them, you get a very good horse character. Of course, zero armor, as he is ethereal, relying on that physical resistance, not a ton of HP, but great combat stats all the way around, including pure 430 armor-piercing weapon strength, 85 charge. He's got perfect vigor. He's got a little passive self-heal for the forest as well, which will come with the kit on the Changeling. The rest of the build here, got some Zangors up front, a couple of Chaos Chariots for anti-dwarf duty. Caster's going to be a Chaos Sorcerer of Metal. We're looking for Plague of Rust, Final Transmutation, little Skull of Catan as well for some little spell mastery. Addition, Flamers of Tzeentch. And it looks like some Furies up in the sky there out in the distance. Couple of Spawn as well. Spawn were recently buffed in the last update. They got some more charge bonus, among other goodies. So yeah, we'll see how the Tzeentch Spawn can do here, including the Regiment of Renown with their physical resistance. Up against them, Thorek, Ironbrow, and the Dwarfs standing proud with plenty of Dwarf Warriors. We've got some Miners here and Thunderers. There's a couple Slayers in the back here. And it looks like, yeah, Dwarf Warriors in the front. Relatively straightforward, so let's get things rolling here, as the woods will give the Tzeentch forces some cover as they advance here. Kind of block some of the shots that will come through the trees there, give some pretty decent protection, but Green Knight going to be jumping in the front line here. Great armor piercing and splash damage, just jumping straight into a unit of Rangers there. And we see one Chariot get hit by that Rune of Slowness and absolutely gadded down by the guns, even the blasting charges throwing into them, although I do think that's a mistake, potentially, for the blasting charges to not save those for, like, the Zangors, but nonetheless, one unit being routed immediately. The other Chariot's a little bit late on the follow-up. We do have here on the flanks, Flamers doing some skirmishing. Don't want to necessarily just stand and shoot with the Quarrelers. The greater volume there will be pretty punishing, so they're going to need to pull back shortly. Same thing with the Flamers on the other side, but the Spawns and the Furies here coming and landing now as well. Furies inundating the guns, and the Spawns helping out the front line will help those Zangors trade that much more effectively, not only with their mass and punching power, but of course the armor sundering helps the Zangors also with their non-AP damage. You can see the Dwarf Warriors down to just 55, basically makes them into like Empire State Troops with better melee defense. Good stuff there. The Furies, one unit pulls back, doesn't actually successfully get into the air without getting unstable, but we still have, you know, Flamers firing in the flanks here. Trees kind of doing double duty, protecting some of the Dwarven Quarrelers at this point over on the far side. On this side here, a little bit better. We see the Flamers are able to kind of sync up with the Zangors and the weird Spawn, the Regiment of Renown Spawn here, collapsing this initial front line, getting into the Quarrelers and whatnot on the flanks. Of course, multiple armor sundering effects here. If we do consider both the Spawn and the Flamers can pull away additional armor of 10 with that Warp Flame effect. But let's see, kind of getting set perhaps to find another firing angle, firing solution. These Flamers also coming through, pushing pretty aggressively at this point, but Quarrelers, they're not going to go quietly in melee to these Chariots, although they will be disrupted. Their armor is going to protect them pretty well. Nice Final Transmutation in the front line, though, trying to help get this Spawn through. And, yeah, I mean, Dwarven spell resistance. Thorek's not up on his anvil, or no, he is. Okay, so that's going to add additional spell resistance, and definitely will impact the efficiency of that Final Transmutation. But the Green Knight charges in, finds an angle. No really units to challenge him here, although he has to be a little bit careful. Thorek does deal magic damage in melee, so if he is going to be taking hits there, that won't be the best. But 50 melee defense versus only 34 melee attack. He's relatively safe here. Even if he does take a few hits, it's not going to be the end of the world, and he certainly dispatches Thorek in a big hurry, sniping him out in that front line. But Tzeentch, nonetheless, taking some losses as well. We see the Flamers kind of getting hunted down in the back line here. Yeah, they're actually get caught by the Slayers in this instance and just crumbled due to instability. This Chariot also taking some very serious heat right now, but the Flamers responding kind as they're able to. A very critical death, though. The timing on that is really nice, and the location as well. A couple of Quarrelers just straight up rout as Thorek drops. The Zangors and Green Knight able to follow up and do some good damage, chasing some routing infantry here. Flamers go down on the final volley, but the Green Knight's able to crash the Thunderers here. And overall, it looks like the Dwarves, yeah, suffering under that leadership penalty. Dwarves are generally, being a high leadership faction, less susceptible to the leadership shock of your general dying. But when you're in a situation like this, got a lot of tattered units, a lot of units kind of compromised, terror around as well. It's tough even for high leadership units to maintain at this point. But the Slayers, being unbreakable, will continue fighting and do what they probably should have been doing. I'm sure they've been trying to, but just mirror the Green Knight wherever he goes. Certainly easier said than done at this point, but just keep those Slayers glued to him as much as possible, or at least try to. Obviously, him being much faster and Perfect Vigor is going to make it tough for the Slayers to catch, but yeah, we see the Dwarfs collapsing this Zangor here. As they catch the Thunderers, they're going to get rear charged by Dwarf Warriors from behind. Let's see. Miners, Ekron's Miners moving in as well. They've basically just been bypassed this entire time. Not a particularly threatening unit, even though they are an ROR, Regiment of Renown. They're very tired, so their stats are quite down. And I mean, Miners' stats are just terrible to begin with anyway, for the most part. Oh, yeah, Chariots chasing some routing units there in the distance can kind of help shatter some of these units here and chase like multiple units at a time. See the Zangors turn around from the Thunderers. They're going to come back over. See if they can contribute against those Slayers. There's enough Slayers here that the Green Knight does have to be a little careful, but we'll fast forward through this cleanup phase, take a nice wide view, as Tzeentch just kind of chases routing units all across the map. The Green Knight applies his terror to these Quarrelers, just getting rid of whatever he can. This is technically Conquest, so Dwarfs are going to come back, capture that Conquest objective, and I have to think if they would have maybe focused on capturing that Conquest objective a little bit sooner, perhaps they would be in a position to kind of force points win here in this late game. But yeah, you see there when the Change Knight got surrounded by Slayers, did take a big burst of damage, but if he's fighting in the forest, then he is going to be getting that passive healing at least as well. Of course, the Perfect Vigor makes a big difference, and especially when he can fight with these Zangors against the Slayers, that will be the biggest win for him for sure. But without Green Knight support, the Zangors likely just get clobbered on the charge here by these Slayers. This Slayer in particular is active. They have been resting for some time, so the Vigor is back to where it needs to be. But they might actually just get rear charged here by the Zangors, which would be unfortunate, but yeah. Slayers, decent charge bonus, 26. Very good for infantry. Probably should rear charge, but actually just saving themselves and switching places with the Miners. Looks like they might try and go and finish off those spawn, which do manage to chase the Thunderers and proc a route there. Over here, yeah, Zangors plus the Green Knight able to finish that Dwarf Warrior. And another final transmutation. Will buff very slightly the weapon strength of the Zangors in this late game. They're getting an extra 3 from that arcane charge. Nothing too crazy, but it's something. But yeah, the Dwarf Slayers at this point chasing actually do manage to kind of pin these large units in place momentarily. They drop all the spawn in quick succession. Oof, that was absolutely nasty. Drop a Chariot model there as well, maybe. Maybe not quite. But the Chaos Sorcerer Lord's also got to be careful. He's going to drop a little bombardment as he continues to risk it for the biscuit, as they say. Tries to pull away as the bombardment lands. The Dwarfs also trying to dodge. A couple of them get hit by that. But let's fast forward again as the Slayers continue to try and hold Ekron's Miners as well. Just holding the objective at this point. Definitely the best course of action. Not really a lot of chance to recover any of these units through away. But yeah, unfortunately the Ekron's Miners just immediately rout and then die to army losses, forsaking the Slayers. And no doubt when they get back to the hold, they will also be made to take the Slayer Oath, because that is a most dishonorable action from the Ekron's Miners there. Yeah, I might have just put the Slayers literally like inside the Ekron's Miners, and then maybe just try and mirror wherever they charge, just to get the, a little bit extra leadership. But it was so close to army losses anyway. Not really particularly surprising. But honestly, the Changeling into Green Knight's a pretty good tech. I do like that quite a bit. I mean, a lot of factions, I guess, magic damage against Tzeentch, like, they do have some demonic units, but it's not necessarily as prevalent as, say, against, like, Slaanesh or, yeah, I don't know. A lot of people might not necessarily take a lot of magic damage against Tzeentch. It's not like something that you necessarily think about prioritizing, certainly. So, yeah, having the Green Knight as an option, I mean, he definitely outclasses, we'll take a look. I'm pretty sure he outclasses pretty much all Tzeentch lords in combat, especially once you factor in that Perfect Vigor and the 100% AP damage, Frostbite. Yeah, with the caster at his side, does quite well here. Yeah, the Chaos Chariot as well that goes in the late game does a great job chasing routing units and kind of supporting various engagements. Flamers, one of them pays for themselves, pretty respectable. Exactly equal gold value as well on the two spawns. Pretty nice symmetry there. Overall, fun build. Really like it. This one from Prime, I think. Yeah. Let me know down in the comments below. My apologies. But on the Dwarf side, it's interesting. The Slayer's got quite a bit of value. Honestly, just more Slayers would probably be better for a build. You know, hindsight 2020. But his range units also, the Thunderers at least, got some pretty good value shooting at the Chariots and the Flamers and whatnot. So, Phoenix King here. Not a bad build, certainly. But definitely a wild one from Tzeentch. Yeah, I like that tech quite a bit. So if we think about it, yeah, the Changeling, like I said, there's a couple options where he can actually have access to a mount or mobility. Obviously, if you go with one of the monstrous lords like Skarbrand, who is fast on their own, you do have the mobility of that. But Green Knight, I think he might be the only one in this list that actually has like a horse mount. Which is pretty nice. Only 1,700, which, I mean, if we come in and compare to actual Green Knight, is basically the same, right? Which I think you do get, I forget what exactly. You actually get Dolores Blade? I didn't see there. Maybe you actually do, which would be interesting. Typically, you don't get access to items, so you are losing a tiny bit of value there, but pretty much getting the entire value of the Green Knight, which is quite cheap for how strong he is. Again, we think about Tzeentch, don't really have like a lot of amazing combat lords, but if we look at the Chaos Lord of Tzeentch, right, on a steed, 1350 is definitely cheaper. With anti-large, it's actually a relatively similar stat profile. Of course, the Green Knight is faster, has that Perfect Vigor, better attack, less defense, less overall weapon strength, but is 100% AP, so it's going to do probably more damage to most targets. Better charge bonus, that self-heal as well, which technically, you know, if we cut Dolores Blade, it's even closer, but for the sake of the cost, right? Yeah, and, you know, the fact that he's unbreakable, I mean, he just has so many benefits that make him just heads and shoulders above Chaos Lord, and even as an ethereal unit, somewhat less vulnerable, given that he still has a very good HP pool and has Blessing of the Lady to give him at least 15% damage resistance. So, yeah, Strider as well, Vanguard. Of course, Steed wouldn't get that access to that as the Changeling, but nonetheless, yeah, very, very solid option for sure for Tzeentch. Take him with a cheap kind of hero caster and definitely can benefit quite a bit from it. So cool to see. Hope you guys enjoyed that. If you like this sort of content, be sure to like, subscribe, hit that bell notification button. Every time I upload a new video, you'll be notified. Thanks again. We'll see you next time.